Today, my guest is best-selling author A.J. Jacobs. We will be talking about his new book from Simon & Schuster, The Guinea Pig Diaries, My Life as an Experiment. A.J. is an editor-at-large with Esquire magazine and is known for what has been described as living his life as one big experiment. His two previous books, The Know-It-All and The Year of Living Biblically, made the New York Times bestseller list. He lives in New York City with his wife and children. A.J., welcome to our show.
Thank you for having me. Great to be here.
Thanks so much. Well, your new book, The Guinea Pig Diaries, is a zany collection of 9 experiments. Would you give my listeners a brief overview of the book, first of all, and then secondly, why did you write it?
Sure. Well, what I like to do is really dive in and immerse myself in these experiments, these life experiments, because I find it's the best way to improve my life, to sort of change it up and try new things. So this one is a collection of things I did. Everything from I outsourced my life. I hired a team of people in Bangalore, India, to do everything for me. So they answered my phone and answered my email, and they argued with my wife for me, and they read bedtime stories to my son. So I tried that. It's just one of them. And another was when I tried not to lie for an entire month. I tried to practice something called radical honesty. So it's a collection of these experiences and how they affected me.
Well, they're a lot of fun, and I think your title, being a guinea pig, a human guinea pig, I think that really tells exactly what you are. Some of the experiments that you discussed, you mentioned the radical honesty movement and outsourcing your life. Which of the experiments are brand new, and which came from your Esquire articles? Because
about
as I understand it, yeah.
Right, are from Esquire magazine, where I work, and half are new. So among the new ones is one called The Unitasker, where I try to eliminate multitasking from my life, which is incredibly hard.
I think it's almost impossible. I really tried doing that after I read that.
You. We're trying.
It doesn't work.
Well, it works to some extent. You can get rid
of
some of it. Because, well, at least for me, it was ruining my life. I was completely distracted. It was, I was talking on the phone while driving, and I was texting while peeing. Oh. All sorts of things, and I found it really, when I tried to focus, it changed the way I thought. So it definitely improved my life.
But it does take practice. You know, I'm finding from reading your books that everything that you have experimented with is not necessarily easy. We all think we would like to do this, that, and the other thing and want to jump right into it. But it also tells you how hard you have to work to succeed at these things, which you did manage to do in most cases.
Well, thank you. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the fun is that they're all challenging. If they all at times are awkward or painful or even humiliating, but in the end, hopefully, I come out with some lessons and hopefully a better person.
Well, you know what I'd like to do now, AJ, is to go back to your first book so we can give my listeners a little background about you, because you are a very challenging, zany, but serious person when you get involved in all of this. And your first book, The Know-It-All, how did that come to be? And tell us what that experiment was.
Well, that experiment was a book for which I read the entire Encyclopedia Britannica from A to Z, so all 33,000 pages. And this came about because after college, I felt that my IQ was dropping about a point every year. So I needed to do something drastic. And my father had started to read the encyclopedia when I was a kid.
Really?
So, yeah. But he didn't finish. He only made it up to the letter B, about boomerang.
My
boomerang
goodness.
or Borneo. So this was sort of my attempt to finish what he began, remove that black mark from our family history. And it was an amazing year. I learned an incredible amount, most of which I've forgotten, But there are still things that are floating around in there. In fact, there's so much in there that I can't get out that I wish I could. Opossums have 13 nipples. That's stuck in my brain. I can't get it out. So there was a lot of sort of trivial and useless information, fun cocktail party information. But then there was also some wisdom. I was able to read the entire span of human history, and it was actually very life-affirming. It made me feel better about humans because I read the ups and the downs, and I do believe that overall the highs outweigh the lows and that we have made progress.
Well, isn't that encouraging? How long did it take you to read the encyclopedia?
Oh, it took me about a year and a half. I was reading about 6 hours a day.
Oh, my. Well, that's quite an accomplishment. Did you ever come across anything like, why do we cross our fingers when we want to have good luck? I thought of you last night when I was sitting there crossing my fingers about something that I hoped would happen on television, some silly thing, and I thought, I wonder if AJ knows the answer to this, because I don't know. Have you ever heard that?
I think, I could be making this up, but I think that it has to do with the cross, the crucifix.
Really?
And then it's a good luck symbol. Yeah.
That's interesting.
Same with knock on wood, I believe. Also, that derives from the crucifix.
Well, your next book, to me, was even more challenging, and I can't tell you how much I admire you for doing these things, because they're not easy. But your second book, The Year of Living Biblically, has been optioned for a movie by Paramount Pictures and Plan B Productions, and the paperback came out recently. One of your press releases said, or it might have been your bio, I'm not sure which, that this book appeared on the cover of the evangelical magazine Relevant, but was also featured in Penthouse. And in your bio, you said you were proud to be a uniter, not a divider.
That's right.
I love that.
Well, I'm not supposed to be proud because the Bible says no pride.
That's right.
But I couldn't resist. I was very excited to sort of bridge the gap.
Well, why did you decide to spend a year of your life living this way?
This one came about because I grew up with very little religion at all. As I say in the book, I'm Jewish in the same way the Olive Garden is Italian, so not very. But I became increasingly interested in religion, especially since I had a young son and I wanted to know what to teach him. So I decided one way to get a crash course in religion is to read the Bible and follow everything it says, to sort of learn about biblical times from the inside out, learn about the Bible by living it. So that's what I did. I wrote down every rule that I could find in the Bible, and it was an incredibly long list, and I wanted to follow them all. So I wanted to follow the famous ones, like love your neighbor and Ten Commandments, but I also wanted to follow those that are often ignored, that you cannot shave the corners of your beard. So I had a huge beard and spent a lot of time at airport security, by the way.
I imagine you did.
So I tried to follow that, and everything right on down to stoning adulterers.
Well, that part about stoning the adulterer, I think, was quite interesting and strange and funny, and we'll get into some of those things in a little while. Is the deal for the movie, have you been involved in that at all, The Year of Living Biblically?
A little bit. I know that they're working on a second script, and it's all now in God and Paramount Pictures' hands.
Yes.
So, hopefully, I cross my fingers and hope that it happens.
Knock on wood and whatever else we can do for you. Who do you see as playing yourself in the movie?
Well, it's interesting. They actually attached an actor who is who's passionate about the book. Not someone I saw coming because I'm sort of a nebbishy Jewish guy from the Upper West Side, and the actor's name is Marlon
Marlon Williams.
Marlon Wayans. He's one of the Wayans brothers.
Oh. Interesting.
It was It was a curveball.
Quite.
But he's very passionate about it, so I'm excited to see what he comes up with.
That's funny because I kept picturing Jack Black. Do you know Jack Black? But then I thought, well, he's not very tall, so I don't know how he would look carrying a staff.
Maybe he could lose. Yeah, they could stretch him out.
Yeah. Well, let's get back to talking about your recent book. And for those that might have just tuned in their cars, this is the Jacqueline Bachar Show, and I'm talking to A.J. Jacobs about his new book, The Guinea Pig Diaries. My outsourced life that you mentioned, an experiment in the Guinea Pig Diaries, I see, is also being developed for a movie by Universal Pictures. I think that's incredible. I have several favorites in this book, but I especially liked this one. Can you just go into a few more details about it again while we're talking specifically?
Sure. Well, as I mentioned, I felt overwhelmed, so I wanted to see if I could outsource my life. So I hired this team of people in Bangalore, and it was really a remarkable experience because, not only did they answer my email and phone, but they argued with my wife for me. And the best part was that they were better at arguing with my wife than I was. They were much more polite and diplomatic, so my wife loved it, and it made our marriage better.
That's really something. Tell our audience how you found this group in India and why in India?
Well, India, I had been reading a book on outsourcing by Tom Friedman, and it talked about how all these large corporations were hiring people in India to do sort of their tasks, their low-end tasks, data entry, things like that. Now, I am a writer, so I don't have a large corporation. But I thought that I felt kind of jealous that I was missing out on this amazing business trend. So I thought, well, maybe they can do my tasks. So I actually called up the company that does it for these major corporations, and I asked them, would you be willing to do it for me, just one guy? And they said that they would. Why not, they said. So that's how it all came about.
Well, it's going to be interesting to see how this is developed into a movie. Certainly it's going to be expanded upon, but I think it could be an awful lot of fun.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I hope so.
And the gals that were working with you, they were very sweet and likable
Oh, yeah,
people.
that was one of my favorite parts, is getting to know them on a personal level. Because usually the person on the other end of the line, when you call up for tech support, it's just a voice, and you get annoyed because they don't know the exact right answer. But I got to know them on a human level, and it was very touching, actually.
Yes, it was. It really was. Now, what's fun in the book too is the series of photographs. And is this the first chapter is My Life as a Beautiful Woman? Is that you in the picture?
Well, that is my face.
Your face. I was going to say.
On a model, because I actually did not dress up as a woman.
No.
I did not have. I did not have that body.
I didn't think so, but it was. It's quite a fun picture. Which experiment in the book was your favorite? Was it My Outsourced Life?
I did love that one. I also loved one where I tried to be completely rational for a month, almost like what would Spock do? And it was fascinating because I realized how irrational so much of our life is, and how much our decisions are not based on well thought out reasoning. They're based on, a lot of times they're based on laziness and inertia, misinformation. Just to give you one quick example, my toothpaste, I'd been using the same toothpaste for 30 years, and the only reason was because some guy in my bunk at summer camp used it, and so he seemed cool, so I thought I would use it. And but once I thought about it, I realized I hate the taste of this toothpaste. It's medicinal. It's really overly minty. So I decided I would try several different toothpastes, and I did. I found one that's a Tom's of Maine. It's got a orange mango flavor.
Sounds good.
Oh, it's delicious, and it's changed my life for the better because every day it's a little treat to brush my teeth in the morning and at night. So those little decisions, if you actually stand back and look at them for just 1 second and make a tiny change, it can have big effects on your life.
Well, it's really made me think differently, and I think that's the other fun part of the book. You do start thinking about that. I've been thinking about my toothpaste, too. And I'd like to also mention to our listeners something that we haven't done. At the end of each of these chapters, you write a coda, what you have learned and how you feel about the particular experiment. I liked that aspect of it.
Well, thank you very much.
Did you decide to do that right from the beginning, or did, as a writer, you just felt that would be a good way to end the article, or why did it come about that way?
Well, I think I wanted to, each of them, the experiences, I wanted to reflect on how it changed me. So it wasn't just a fun adventure, although hopefully it is that, but it's hopefully something that gave me insights. So that was the reasoning behind that.
Let's talk about which one is your least favorite. Now, we love them all. We love them all. But I think I probably know which one you had, well, let's say maybe a little problem with, or was the toughest.
One that was particularly unpleasant to go through. It was horrible, probably the worst month of my life.
And which one was that?
That one, as you might have guessed, is when I tried something called radical honesty.
Yes.
Oh, my goodness. And this was a movement that's actually started by a psychologist. And it has thousands of followers, and it's a fascinating idea. His idea is that we should never, ever lie. But more than that, whatever's on our brain should come out of our mouth.
Oof.
So it's actually a lot like Kanye West. It's basically, everyone should be saying whatever's on their mind at all times. And as you can imagine, it's complete chaos. I did learn some things that I've taken with me. I do try to practice sort of sustainable radical honesty, but I do need that filter sometimes because otherwise, I remember I was standing in a restaurant. I was at a restaurant with my wife, and we ran into some old friends of hers from college, and they said, "Oh, we should all get together." And I had to say exactly what was on my mind, which was, "No thanks. I'd rather not. I'm happy not to see you again." And it was horrible. They were offended. My wife wanted to strangle me. So it was, that kind of thing. It's a very difficult way to live life.
Yeah, I somehow I don't think that socially that's the direction in which we want to go.
No, although I will say there were parts that were incredibly liberating because you're just saying what's on your mind. You don't have to remember lies. You can't believe how much energy we spend remembering the different white lies that we've told.
Well, it's kind of fun to be able to say no, but maybe there's another way of saying it or something adding to it. But anyway, right. I don't think I'd want to try that one either. But it's great to read about it. It's great. It's great to see you squirming through it and not us. I want to go back a little bit, too, to the year of living biblically, because, again, I think this gives our listeners a great way of understanding what you're all about, because, as you say, it's fun, but it is serious, and you're trying to learn something. It made me think that I am, as I mentioned, currently reading The Year of Living Biblically in paperback. And I've done so out in coffee shops and other public places. And when I giggle, I can't help it. I might giggle or burst out laughing. I'm often asked, what am I reading? And I am looked at a little strange when I tell them the title, and I have to elaborate on why it's funny as well as serious. So it does take an unusual kind of guy to do something like this, and you got some pretty strange reactions yourself during the year. What was the funniest and strangest situation, or even the most difficult, or one of them, because there's a lot of them, and how did you handle it?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, I did feel that to follow the Bible literally, I should probably stone an adulterer, and this was a problem. But I finally got to stone one, and it happened in Central Park. I don't want to ruin it if you haven't gotten to that part.
No, I have gotten to it. That's
okay.
why I'm giggling already.
I was wearing my robe and sandals because I was really trying to get into the spirit of it. And a man came up to me and he said, "Why are you dressed like that?" And I explained, I'm trying to follow everything in the Bible, from the Ten Commandments to stoning adulterers. And he says, "Well, I'm an adulterer. Are you going to stone me?" And I said, "Well, yeah, that would be great. Thank you for offering." So I actually, at that point, I took some stones out of my pocket because I had been carrying stones around, hoping for this, to run into an adulterer. And he was actually a very aggressive adulterer. And
Oh, dear.
Yes, I'm afraid so. He wasn't a sweet adulterer. He took the stones out of my hand and threw them at my face. And they were small stones, by the way. They were like pebbles, because that's the way I figured, I could get away with it. And he then, he threw them at my face, so I felt an eye for an eye. I could throw one back at him. So that's the way I stoned.
So did he then just walk away from you, or didn't lead to a fist fight or anything, did it?
No, he walked away. He brushed by me as he left. So it was clear he wasn't happy and I wasn't happy. And it did allow me to wrestle with some of the bigger issues of the year. It was a strange and amusing interaction, but at the same time, it was, I had to figure out, how can the Bible be so wise and compassionate, merciful, wonderful in some places, and yet so seemingly barbaric in others? So this was one of the big questions of my year.
Well, there's so many interesting things in all of these books, and certainly we will get back, of course, to Guinea Pig Diaries, but I think the thing that was so impressive is the stack of Bibles that you went out and purchased, and all of the guides, if you will, the religious figures that you spoke with in all religions and made visits to certain areas, and you even went to Israel, did you not?
I did indeed. That was one of my favorite parts, was immersing myself in these different religious communities and learn how they interpreted the Bible. So I spent a lot of time with Hasidic Jews and evangelical Christians, and I think I might be the first person to out-Bible talk a Jehovah's Witness.
That was a great aspect of the book. They almost fell over when you called them and said, "Can you please send someone out to visit me?" Because that's never done.
I might have been the first person to actually request one to come to my door. Right. And then he came over, and I just, after 3.5 hours, he looked at his watch and he said, "I can't take this anymore." And he left. But I was just so fascinated with the topic, and I could have gone on for forever. So because that really allowed me to see how other people interpret the Bible, and also break through the stereotypes. So I had some very preconceived notions about evangelical Christians, for instance, and I realized when meeting them that it's not a monolithic community, that there's so much variety and so many different points of view, and that I agreed with many of the points of view of some of these people. So it was a real learning experience.
Can you talk a little bit about your trip to the Amish country?
Sure, yeah, that was one of the groups that I wanted to visit, and because they do take the Bible literally in some ways. They won't take photographs because it violates the second commandment, which is that you cannot make images. So I went down there, and again, it burst every stereotype I had of the Amish. First of all, because this Amish man I was staying with was sort of like an Amish stand-up comedian. He had a constant, he was always joking, making Amish jokes. I mean, I'd heard Amish jokes, but never from an Amish person. So, it was really enlightening. And also, it was very moving. We sang some Amish hymns, and they're quite beautiful. And there's some, the simplicity of their life and their ability to forgive. It's, it's remarkable.
I really think that this book in particular should be a part of every school curriculum, because I
From
think
your lips to God's ears.
absolutely,
Thank you, Jack.
because you've covered it so fairly and you covered all aspects of it, and it really is very enlightening. What I want to ask you next is, what was the most difficult aspect of your life experiments, both as a husband and a father, in both living biblically and guinea pig?
Well, there were a few. There was, just a couple of different things. First was the idea of not sinning. The Bible says you cannot covet, gossip, or lie, and I live in New York City, and I work in the media, so this is pretty much 70% of my day. So that was a radical change, trying to do this sort of moral makeover. And then there were these parts of the Bible that also my wife was not so happy about. For instance, the Bible says in the Hebrew Scriptures, you cannot touch women during certain times of the month. But if you take it really literally, you cannot sit on a seat where a woman in her time of month has sat, because then that seat is impure. So my wife found this offensive, so she sat in every seat in our apartment, and I was forced to stand for much of the year.
But at some point, I got to that part where you were sitting in your baby's little chair, wooden chair, with
That's
your
right.
knees
I
up
was
to your
reduced to
chin.
sitting on the bench that my 3-year-old had.
Well, and with Guinea Pig Diaries, you really didn't share with her, did you, what was an experiment? So she really didn't know, like when you told the friends that you didn't want to go with them. Did she know that was part of the experiment? I got the feeling that you weren't sharing a lot of the details with her in certain experiments.
Yeah, and sometimes I didn't, because I wanted it to be sort of as scientific as possible. I know it's not a science, but I just wanted to see how it would affect her. And she is a saint, as many of the letters to me point out.
Yeah, I was going to say that your wife Julie should have her own fan club for what she went through while you were living the experiments. Is that how the final experiment in guinea pig called Whipped came to be?
That's exactly it. I got lots of letters from people saying that you owe her, and one thing you could do is follow everything she says for a month. Just be the ultimate obedient husband for a month. And so that's what I did. It was a month of foot massages and Kate Hudson movies, and it was a total eye-opener about our marriage, because, in one sense it was horrible, because I was running around all day, and she got drunk with power, so she would make me, we'd be sitting there, and she said, "Can you turn up the volume on the TV?" And I would say, "Well, you have the remote control," and she would say, "I know, but I want you to do it." So she got drunk with power. But I also
good for her.
I know, that's true. She deserves it. And she got to write a part of the chapter, sort of a rebuttal. But the other thing that she made us do is make a list of everything we each do around the house and how long it takes. And this, to me, was kind of a revelation, because I did believe that I was doing about half the work. Before she made us do the list, I was a little bit deluded about how much I contribute. And unfortunately, now I see that she does more, so I can never go back to those glory days when I got to sort of lounge around.
Well, that's one of the things, certainly a very important aspect, I think, of what you did personally gain from these experiences. I haven't finished that final chapter. I was kind of waiting until after our interview. I was saving it to savor it a little more. But and I haven't finished, of course, the year of living biblically, because there's a lot in here that you have to think about. So what did you gain from that? What was your final conclusion from that?
From the year of living biblically?
Yes.
So many things. But one that strikes me is just I gained this sense of gratitude, because the Bible talks about how you have to say prayers of thanksgiving. And I kind of got carried away. So I was saying prayers of thanksgiving for everything. So I would press an elevator button, and I would be thankful the elevator came. Then I would get in the elevator, and I would be thankful that it didn't plummet to the basement. So I was saying hundreds of thanks every day. And it was a strange way to live, but it was also quite wonderful, because you start to realize there are hundreds of things that go right every day. that you do cross 50 streets without getting hit by a truck, and that we have to be grateful for these things, and instead of focusing on the 3 or 4 that go wrong. So it was a radical change in perspective, and I think it's made me happier.
And you're not as secular as you were in the beginning of all of this.
Well, that's true. I'm still agnostic.
Yes,
but we did join a temple, a synagogue in our neighborhood, and we never go, but we did join.
Well,
and so it was a step. And I'm also sending our kids to. My wife and I are sending our kids to Hebrew school because we do want them to have a foundation in our tradition. So whether or not they accept it, that either way is fine with me. But I thought it'd be nice to give them sort of a taste, a foundation.
And just very briefly now, AJ, what are you working on now that we can look forward to in the coming couple years or so?
The final part of my self-improvement series is what I'm working on. I've felt I've done the mind and I've done the spirit, so this is going to be my body. I'm trying to be the healthiest person alive.
Oh, that one I look forward to, and I hope that when that is out and about, you'll be on our show again and talk to us about that. I've enjoyed this so much, and we are out of time, AJ. Thank you very much. Enjoy your book tour. I know you are on a book tour, and I do hope you'll come back with your next
I would love
book.
to. I had a great time.